It is certainly our pleasure to speak with the presenter of the library's 2015 McFadden Memorial Lecture here at Clowes Hall, Khaled Hosseini. His 3 best-selling books, including The Kite Runner, which was published in 2003, tell the stories of family and human relationships, as well as the reality of life in his native Afghanistan. Khaled, thank you for joining us, spending time with us,
Sure.
and welcome to Indianapolis.
Thank you.
I mentioned The Kite Runner. Your other books are And the Mountains Echoed, A Thousand Splendid Suns. What impact do you think your books have had on changing people's perceptions of Afghanistan, especially here in the West?
Judging from the response that I've had from my readers, my books have done, I think, what I really hope literature can do, which is to fill in the gaps for people, create bridges between people who are very different. I think for a lot of people in the West, Afghanistan was sort of this place that has been perpetually at war for decades, and there was very little kind of insight into what the culture is, what the people are like, and that's what books can do,
right?
As they can present a sort of a human dimension to otherwise a kind of a, an Associated Press story on page 10.
Right. For those who don't know your history, you were born in Afghanistan. You lived in Paris with your family as your father was part of the foreign ministry. Your family emigrated to the U.S. in 1980 after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Then you studied and became a practicing physician.
I did.
However, what was the inspiration for beginning your writing with The Kite Runner? What got you started?
I've been writing all my life just for myself. And the novel, The Kite Runner, was born out of a short story that I had written in the late 90s about the sport of kite flying in Afghanistan, because all the boys in Kabul and myself, we all grew up flying kites. And I revisited the short story in early 2001 and decided that it didn't really work as a short story, but there might be a novel in it. And I'd always wanted to write a novel, and so just began expanding that short story, and before I knew it, it kept growing and growing and turned into a novel. I was finished with it by the summer of '02.
Well, I must say your writing is so elegant and your storytelling is so real, as harsh as some of the stories are in your books. But where did the gift come from? How did you get inspired to write your very first novel, which became a worldwide classic?
I always loved it. I can't remember a time in my life that I didn't love writing. I always felt a need and a compulsion to write. So it never felt there was any element of choice or any single moment of inspiration. It's something that I've always loved doing. I never intended to publish, really. I just did it for myself. I wrote stories, then I just tossed them. It was just the act of writing them was a great pleasure for me. It made me very happy. And so one thing led to another, and before long I kind of found myself, 9 years after I started practicing medicine, found myself doing writing as a kind of a career now.
Which you're no longer practicing medicine.
I haven't practiced medicine in almost 10 years.
Right,
So.
okay. Let's talk about your other work that's very important to you, I know, your work with the United Nations Refugee. You're an envoy with their refugee agency. You have your own Khaled Hosseini Foundation to provide humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. How successful have these activities been?
Well, I hope they've achieved something. We certainly, through the foundation, have been able to reach out to the vulnerable groups in Afghanistan, which is women and children, and to fund projects that provide education, healthcare, shelter, and economic opportunities to women and children, because they're 2 of the most vulnerable groups in Afghanistan. I've also worked with the UN Refugee Agency in sort of bringing services to all those millions of refugees who returned to Afghanistan after the fall of the Taliban and who are now kind of having a tough time of making it go in a country where the economy is bad and the government is weak.
What's your outlook for the future of Afghanistan?
I'm constitutionally an optimistic person while being sober of the very serious problems that Afghanistan faces. But I think on the whole, the country is moving in the right direction. It's a very young country, becoming increasingly urban. And if you look at polls in Afghanistan, they're hopeful too about the future of the country. Most Afghans think the country is slowly moving in the right direction. We do have to achieve a peace process with the insurgents, and we need better governing. But we have a new president now, a new government, renewed hope.
Good. Good. It's been 2 years since the book And the Mountains Echoed was published. Do you have any books in the works at this time?
I always have something in the works. We'll see if anything comes of it. But I'm working on another novel now. Nothing imminent yet, but hopefully something will happen with it.
Speaking of your foundation again, how can people help?
Khaled Hosseini Foundation.org. You can just visit it, and it's we have a whole layout of all the different programs that we fund, and whatever strikes your fancy, wherever your heart lies, and you can help us out. So that's always appreciated. Well,
thank you for your time. Best of luck in all of your activities.
Thank you.
This has been a real pleasure to meet
much.
you. Khaled Hosseini, the speaker at the library's 2015 McFadden Memorial Lecture. You can check out Khaled Hosseini's books at the library, e-books and hard copy books. Just go to ndpl.org.